Okay, so we're up to Mishnas Sofrim and we're going through the letters. So now we're going to start with the letter Aleph. So what we'll do is we'll do a few letters a day and we'll work through. Like I said, some Dirshu Shiurim leave this out, but it's part of the cycle. And Baruch Hashem, we're ahead. We'll try and do it. So can you see? It's the next page of Mishnas Sofrim, and it says there Tzuras Eis Aleph. Yeah, it's the top of the page. Tzuras Eis Aleph. So says the Mishnah Berurah. Tzuras Eis Aleph. The picture book is very helpful here. Tzuras Eis Aleph. Tiyeh nekudo ha'elyono ke'ein yud. Now, can you imagine? Can you picture the Aleph? The Aleph is made up of a Vav, right? And you've got a picture in the Dirshu one of the Aleph, right? You've got a Vav across the main. That's the main body, and then you've got a Yud at the top and a Yud underneath. Yeah, can you picture that? So says the Mishnah Berurah, Aleph Tiyeh nekuda ha'elyono ke'ein yud. The top part of the Aleph is a Yud. V'ukatz koten oleha, and it's got a little ukatz. So can you see? Yeah, can you see in your Aleph? There's a little Yud. Can you see what I'm talking? In the Tzuras Aleph, you've got a little Yud going out, and you've got a little ukatz, a little point which is going up. Kein Yud. V'ukatz koten oleha v'yeh poneho ima ukatz hafach k'tzas klape malo, and it should be pointed upwards a little bit. V'yeh yerech hayud dovuk el gag haguf be'emtza hagag, and that Yud should be touching the main body of the Aleph, the Vav which goes across. It should be touching it in the middle of it. V'yeh soif hagag shel tzad hayamin, and the soif of the gag shel tzad hayamin lechatchila okum lemala me'achorav katzas, that it should be bent up a little bit. V'hanakuda shelamata tiyeh rechoka min harosh shel haguf k'shir ovi kulmas v'chetzi, and the distance between the Yud, which is underneath the Aleph, should be the size away 1.5 of the kulmas. Now what does that mean? Here's the Aleph, right? Can you see that? Here's the Aleph. So you've got the little Yud, and the Yud at the bottom, and the Vav going across. So there's a little line going down the Yud, which extends it from the Aleph down to there. Can you see that bit over there? How big should that little line be? The answer is a kulmas and a half. Rechav akava, yeah, there should be a kulmas and a half. What does that mean? You've got a kulmas, you've got the quill, and you just draw a line with the quill. The width of that line, it should be 1.5 that. That's how long the little line coming down from the Aleph to the Yud. So back to the Mishnah Berurah. So v'hanakuda shel mata tiyeh rechoka min harosh shel haguf k'shir ovi v'kulmas v'chetzi, 1.5 width of the kulmas. Ovi hakulmas nikra rechav hakav, because the thickness of the kulmas is called the width of the line. Hayotze min hakulmas k'shil kosef, when he draws a line that should be 1.5 times the width of that line. V'hanakuda tachtona, and on the bottom part of the Aleph, yeh lechatchila ukatz koten lemata l'tzad yamin. Now that's this bit. Yeah, so you've got the Aleph. So you've got the Aleph coming out, you've got the top Yud, you've got the line, you've got the bottom Yud. There's a little line, can you see? That's an ukatz coming down on the Yud at the bottom. So it says, v'lekuda tachtoin l'chatchila ukatz koten lemata l'tzad yamin. That should be on the right hand side. Mipnei shetmunoso k'mo Yud shetoli b'tag shelo b'guf ha'Aleph. It's sort of suspended on the body of the Aleph. V'yeh ukatz small shel nekuda ha'elyono, and the ukatz at the top of the Yud, which is on the top of the Aleph, hainu hatag shel gabi hayud, mechuven keneged ukatz yamin shel nekuda hatachtona. In other words, yeah. So here's your Aleph. I mean, it's unbelievable. You now look at the Aleph. You look at an Aleph totally differently now. When this Sofer writes it, there's such thought and exactitude going in it. You've got the Yud at the top, and you've got the Yud at the bottom. The ukatz, which is the little line coming out of the top left-hand corner of the Yud, should be in line with the little ukatz at the bottom of the Yud. That's what the Mishnah Berurah means. Yeah. Mechuven keneged ukatz yamin shel nekuda tachtona. Ad kan loshen beis Yosef. Umash mirhuta delishnei, and it appears from the style of his language, de'ein tzorich ukatz small liyud ha'elyon shel ha'Aleph. You don't need the ukatz, the left-hand ukatz of the Yud, of the upper one, she'ala Aleph, which is on top of the Aleph, you don't need it to be exact. Prima Godim is similar base, Beish Lavram, but is Chavtes, Mashma de Lachatchila Tzorich, Lia is Gam Ukut small, Kamoy L'Shar There should be a left-handed Ukut, like with any other Yud. Im Nogu Yud ha'Aleph, ha'Elyon, or ha'Tachton, Begag ha'Aleph. Now, if the Yud of the Aleph, either the upper one or the lower one, remember it's got two Yuds, one above and one below, if it touches Begag ha'Aleph, Yosim Imokim Dibukai, more than actually at the point of the contact. So what he's saying over here is this. What it should be, is whatever. It should be a little thin line on the Yud going down to the body of the Vav. But if he gets it wrong and it becomes too thick, can you see that there, that Aleph, he puts too much ink there. So there's not a little point of contact, but there's too much. Can you see the black part of the Aleph? He's put too much of the Yud. That it's not like a Yud, a little bit, and then it's a little line coming down to the Aleph, but it's just too much. He fills it out, and he can do this mistake with other letters. The whole line comes down, and that's true with the Yud of a Shin. If you think about it, the Shin has got three Yuds on a baseline, v'ha'ayin, an ayin as well. The letter ayin has got a Yud coming out, a little Yud on top of it. V'hapei v'atzadi, all of these letters, they've got yuds. They're made up of smaller letters. A rosh hasmoli sheba'ayin, or for example, the left-hand part of the ayin, the tzadi shetzorech lios ke'ein zayin, which has got to be a zayin. So, for example, if you can think and look at all these letters. Yeah, the shin is made up of three yuds on top of that baseline. The ayin has got a zayin, and then it's got a yud. The pei is also, the tzadi's got a little yud there and a nun. All of these letters. But if instead of doing a little yud, he just does it too thick, so it doesn't look like a yud. So that's what he's describing over here. In all of these such situations, pasul, then it would become pasul. Rakim le'kosav adayin yosef betfinim mezuzos mutar lahavus laharchiv haroshim kadei she'nika harish. But then that would be permitted to thicken it out a little bit, so that the rosh would be nikah. So that's the prima godim in similar base, Mishnah Bura, B'mem Zayin, Sif Cotton Chof. Okay. The way you resolve the problem is by scraping away. Im lo haya nukuda alyena oish l'matza dovek el agag pasul. If it's not connected, then it's pasul. I.e., the little yud coming down to the main body of the aleph. If it's not connected, then it's pasul. V'ayin le'el b'simen lamed beis sif hey. Okay, ad kan, the letter aleph. Now the letter base. Suras ois base, says the Chaim. Ois base sorich ma'od lizoy b'ribua. The main issue with the base is it's got to be square. So what he means is this. Here's the letter base. We've got to make sure that it's square and not rounded. What's the problem if it's rounded? The problem is it's a chof. Yeah? So it's just a different letter. So says the Mishnah Bura, sorich ma'od lizoy b'ribua shelo nira kakof. Because if it looks like a chaf and it's not a base, then it's pasul. And if we're not sure, as I marry a tinuk, then you ask a tinuk, you say to this kid, what is this letter? Is it a base? It is a chaf. It's got to be square on the right hand side. Bein milmala, lemala bein lemata, on the top and the bottom. Im lemala agulo lemata murbas. What if the top is rounded and the bottom is square? So then it's, you've got to check it out. Ein lahakel, but really one should not be mekel. But small al poneh tag cotton. There should be a little tug coming out. Yeah, here we go. So on the base, there should be a little tug coming out on the top left-hand side, the top of the base. Al poneh tag cotton, tmnosa k'moy mekel, like a tmnosa k'moy makel, which is a little staff. V'ukatz cotton l'mala mitzad yamin, noted at tzad ha'alef, which is leaning towards the aleph, i.e. the letter before it, that way to the right. How come the base has got two little uktzin, one above and one sort of behind it? Because the background is omrim lebase, we say to the letter base, mi baracha, who created you? He sort of points upwards, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or mashamai, what is the name of the person who created you? He points towards the aleph, i.e. Ratzalema Echot Shemay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So those are the symbolism or the background, if you like, to the two uktzin on the letter base. Gam yilo ekev of lamata should have a sort of a thicker base at the bottom. Ki tmnosa kamo daled, because it looks that it has the appearance a little bit of a daled. Teich gorein shel vav, within the sort of the throat, the neck of a vav. Al kein tzorech lios lez zovis lamalo v'sheyeh kedaled. The top edge should be like a daled, ve'ekev tov lemato, and a thick bottom, a thick base, sheyeh b'mokom rosh shel vav, v'tov she'orech v'roichav ha'beis yeh k'gimel kulmasim. The thickness of the base should be 3 kulmasim, i.e. 3 width breadths of the kulmas, of the quill. V'roichav chalala ka'ove kulmas, and the width of the vacuum, of the open part, ka'ove kulmas, should be the width of the kulmas. Ve'imkitzer ha-base, and if you make the base too short, at shenira kanun, you haven't stretched it out enough and it looks more like a nun kfufa, like a regular nun, l'tinok d'lei chakim lo tipesh, in the eyes of a tinok who is of average intelligence, near yesh lahachmin b'zeh, you should be machmir that this is not a good base. Ein lekama bedin ois nun kfufa, which we'll see further on, of base Yosef, Aleph base, sheni ois vav. V'achach motzasi came behedja prima godim b'psicha ein sham shekosov de b'tilum zuz le mahani b'zeh tikul hamshicha k'ma base mishum shaloi kasidron. And then we find exactly that, because if you extend it afterwards, then you've got a problem of shaloi kasidron, because previously this was a nun, and now you've made it into a base. Okay, so that's why you've got to be careful with the base, to make sure it's squared, and it's not too short, and it shouldn't look like a chaf, it shouldn't look like a nun, etc. Okay, that's the Aleph and base. Tzuras ois gimel. Now, if you picture in your mind, or if you actually have a look on the next page in the Dirshu one, you can see a gimel. So a gimel, effectively, is made up of a zayin, which is sort of slanted a little bit with the base towards the right, and a little bit coming out. Yeah, that's how a gimel is made up. So, ois gimel, says the Mishnah Berurah, tia gufa kamo zayin, the main body of the letter gimel should be like a zayin, l'chatchila, v'chein kol roshis small sheba oisios, Shatner gates, doim and zayin. If you think about it, all the letters of Shatner gates, yeah, these letters which need tugging, they all have a zayin. So here you go. Yeah, here we go. Shatner gates. So he's spelled it out over here. Each of those, they're made up of a zayin. Each one of those letters, yeah, Shatner gates, they're components of individual letters which make up other letters. So each letter, the Shatner gates, and the gimel, of course, is one of them. Is made up of a zayin. V'yeh roisha of. Now the top of it should be thick. V'regel yamin dak, and the foot should be thinner. V'yorid ma'at lamata yosim miyerech small, and it goes down towards the right a little bit miyerech small. V'lo yase yorech zeh hasmol b'shipua harbe el ma'at. The slant of the zayin shouldn't be too extreme. It should only be very, very small. V'gam lo yeh okum, it shouldn't be bent. El yimshich b'shaveh, it should be a straight line. In other words, a steady line, and not curved in any way, or not bent. V'yagbiyeu katzas keneged hadalas, and it should be raised a little bit. The bit coming out should be raised towards the dalet. V'yerech hasmol yeh mashmoshuch katzas of El Hazayin, the little bit coming out of the gimel, the foot of the gimel, should be a little bit thick. Shebetzid v'lo bedakas, not too thin. Ki tmunosa tziyetz nearest k'moy nun kfufa, that it should look a little bit, otherwise, because its appearance should be like a nun kfufa, a regular nun. V'yerech yen nomuch k'dei lehasmich ois etzel roishay. U'shleisha tagin al roisha. The gimel has 3 tagin, it's 3 little lines, vertical lines, crowns on its head. Im nidbak hayorech ba'regel, and if the foot sticks to the regel, then you just scrape away. Yigra hayerech v'dai bekach. Kamesh mevu b'simin lam beis if yutches in gura sacharta. And v'dinei hatagin nisboy b'soif simin zeh b'mishnah berurah ein sham. Okay, let's just do one more letter. The dalet. So what have we got to be worried about the dalet? Eis dalet, says the Mishnah Berurah, tzorich shehegaga orach v'ragla k'tzara. The dalet, the top of the dalet, the roof of the dalet has got to be thick, and the regel has got to be short. She'imtei ragla aruka, because if the regel of the dalet is going to be too long, migaga tidme lekaf pshuta, it's going to look like a final chaf. So you got to make sure the dalet, the leg, doesn't go down too far. But tiposel shelo yikrena hatinok dalet, because the kid looks at it, he'll read the final chaf and end the chaf, and he won't read a dalet. It should be slanted a little bit, l'tzad yamin, towards the right, small, with a little tug coming out of the left-hand side. You got to make sure it's very square. Nearest karesh. Don't round it off that it looked like a reish. But and the kid would read a reish, not a dalet. It can't just be sort of sharp from one side. It's got to have a good base. That it looks like two vovin sugurin for ekev keneged reish vavovo echad. For ukit shal pneho keneged hareish, the ukits which is on its face should be keneged the reish vov hashnia, the other vov. Okay. The im regel hadalad ein beirak mole yud kosher. If the foot of the dalad has only got kimlo yud, then it's a kosher. Ein besoif ois tof. He says that at the end of ois tof. Im kosov hey b'mokum dalad. Now, if by mistake the Sefer wrote a hey instead of a dalad, very easy to do. But he wrote the letter dalad and then he just wrote a foot and it becomes a hey. Ein takon ligra haregel aniach dalad. You can't now scrape away the regel and all of a sudden it becomes a dalad. Why? Machasha nifsel v'doimet tzuras hey. Because you have written a hey and loy avid midi v'haveh chak teiches. And you got a problem with chak teiches. You've got ink and you've scraped away to form your letter dalad. So if you've done the hay, you can't just scrape away the regel. And to remove some of the roof also doesn't help. The whenever you weren't nifsal the tzuras ha'is, you've got a problem like we've discussed of chak teiches. Rag, tzorich ligra hagag, you've got to scrape away the gag at shek tzuras vov or mashlima, and then you finish it, you complete it. Oy sheigur gam haregel yamin. Okay, Beseda. So we've done Aleph to Dalet, Mr. Shem will carry on tomorrow.